Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. We have met the person that is trying to rival me for travel in a month. We have her, Sarah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm a little tired, so yeah. It's from all the travel, but I'm content and happy, so it's all good.
Before we get into it, travel is an interesting thing because as much as I love to do it, as much as people see me out and obviously I'm the face of a lot of different things, when they meet me in person, I'm actually pretty chill and reserved. And so it's funny that don't get me wrong, I really love traveling and networking, but man, 2 or 3 days of a golf tournament and a business meeting and a dinner. And it's yesterday I was just trudging through the day, and, you've been as a consultant for many years. I feel like the thing that started for me, that really created the next level, was being able to do it or get through it, what I needed to do, even when I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first kind of level up for people. In college, I used to, true story, I wouldn't go to class if it was raining. That was my attitude all through my 20s, is if it's good, if everything's great, if I'm making money, if nobody's messing with me, I'm going to be in a good mood. I'm a front runner. And so the biggest thing I did was understanding, Cassie taught me, the rain is great too. And that's such a metaphor for life.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, one of the guiding mantras that I have is you can suck, but you can't skip. So you can get into the suck, you can suck yourself, but you have to show up. And a lot of good comes from just showing up on a consistent basis. And, kind of going back to what you were just saying about travel, one of the things that has made me more successful in my personal life, which in turn makes me more successful in my professional life, is remaining consistent in showing up and remaining consistent with my own personal processes. So what are my protocols? How am I bookending my day? How are my nights? And then what is that translating into how are my mornings? And so there's a lot of things that I do, even when on the road and at home, that really help me with that. And I really love tracking my habits and remaining consistent in the productive habits that I have, because there's a lot of unproductive habits that we acquire, and sometimes we don't even realize it. So for me, those have been kind of the key things to not only, again, make me successful in my professional career, but also just make me very successful at home in the way I show up in my relationships. And that ability to show up better for yourself builds the confidence within yourself. And you have that trust to then go out in the world and say no, I got this.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I equated to when I got sober, when I stopped drinking, you don't really want to leave that personal bubble because you need to protect that environment. Right. And so what I try to tell everybody is, when you're starting a new habit, maybe don't take it on the road just yet until you've got kind of in the routine. Cause one of the things my buddy, who's a very much a systems oriented guy, he's I have no idea how you stay consistent on the road. He's it would ruin me if I didn't have my place to do it and everything. And it's not always easy, but when you create and cultivate that mindset, the weather's not going to put you down. This situation's not going to put you down. But more importantly, the number one thing I'm working on as I get older is giving myself permission to not do the routine. Meaning hey, you know what? Maybe, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but only people that will get it, that extra hour of sleep sometimes, I feel like a new human.
Yeah, that is one of my big protocols that I have for myself, is getting an amazing, quality sleep. So I track my sleep on my Oura Ring. I track it with, a bunch of other things that are on my iPhone. I'm always looking at how I can hack my sleep and how I can be more productive coming off of that sleep. So, but I love one of the things that you just said too is, having the ability to kind of like relax and find ease in your processes and protocols that make you feel good. I'm going to be the first one to say that, like, yes, I track my habits, but do I do everything every single day that I have on my habit tracker? No, because I've been doing this for 12 years, if not longer. I mean, I went through more of like a spiritual awakening that led to me, kind of overhauling my whole life. But the fact that I laid a really great foundation in the beginning and really took quite a few years to do that. Now, fast forward 15, 12, 15, or even 16 years later, I can now say that, like, if I let one of my protocols go in the morning or at night, I know I'm going to be okay because I have that trust and I have that confidence. But sleep is a big one. Sleep and movement are my big two.
So, where'd you go to college?
West Virginia University.
West Virginia University.
Yeah.
What was your degree in?
So my degree is in public relations with a minor in English, which I ended up doing not a whole lot with. I've drawn a lot of things from that, just in the way that I operate. But I ended up right out of college working in finance, which was kind of funny because I started off as a business major and I was like, I don't want to take these accounting and econ classes and this is terrible. So I kind of like ran away from that, but it's kind of fun to look at it and be like, no, karma was like, we're coming back to that. And I just came to it in a different capacity. I came to it from, using the English minor that I had. I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of proposals. I worked with the sales team. I worked in the business development side of things. And so there was a lot of things that I leveraged from my education to allow myself to be successful in specifically hedge funds and private equity.
And what did you do for those hedge funds and private equity?
Yeah, so I did business development, which is a very big term, but there's so many different places that I kind of went within that world. Like I said, I worked very closely with the sales team and helping them create proposals and approaches for the prospects that they were working with, or even the clients that they had acquired, for them to really present something attractive that the investment team was kind of like pushing towards them, if you will. There's different, as there's different funds, there's different ways of approaching hedge funds and private equity. And so specifically with a prospect or client, you kind of have to tailor that approach and, longevity for them.
And how long did you do that job?
Did that for almost 10 years. Yeah.
For 10 years.
Right on. Yeah.
And then what was the next kind of iteration of your career?
So working in that environment, and so I worked on Pine Street, which is downtown New York City, right off of Wall Street. And so working in that environment, being one of very few females, I really found that I thrived in a lot of ways professionally, which on paper, it's like, I would look at everything that I had accomplished on paper and say, like, how dare I ask for more? These are the dreams that I had. I was excelling in ways that like a lot of my peers were not, and a lot of like females were not. But I ended up coming up very short personally. I had this like pull in myself that just every time I walked into the office, I was like, I'm not happy, but I should be happy. And that really like took some soul searching to figure out, well, why is that? And I think it's because I had created a persona for myself of being a high achiever and also being a very masculine energy female, which I think was cultivated from a survival standpoint. And also I was rewarded for being that way in a lot of senses because of the environment and the males that I was with, who I still to this day, like, have so much respect for them. I'm often the one that sits here and says, although I'm a female in this industry, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm a feminist, I only want to work with women. No, I love working with men. But I'm getting a little off course. So coming back, I felt as though I just was personally unhappy. And it was because I let my health go. I was not focused on my relationships. I was spending a lot of time in the office. And when I wasn't in the office, I was thinking about all of the things that I had to do. So I wasn't even present when I was outside of the office. There was a bit of travel involved in that. But so I really went on this soul search of just saying like, okay, like bring it on. Like, let me see the path that, the powers that be want me to take. And so I remember this so clearly. I took a lunch break, which I never really did, went for a walk, and I walked to Greenwich Village, and there's this like mystical type shop. It's a bookshop. And so I walk in there and I'm like, okay. And of my faith is I talk to God. And so I said, okay, God, show me where to go. So I go and I pick up this book, and it's a book by Pema Chodron, and I ended up buying that book and then buying several of her books right off of that. And it basically, she's a monk, a female monk, which I found to be so interesting. And she just basically talks about like the Buddhist way and how you can become more happy in the chaotic environments that you're in. It's just focusing on yourself, which sounds so simple. But for me, in that moment, I needed that simplicity. Like, oh, I can take accountability for how I feel. Like all of my thoughts and approaches to how I felt internally was based on the things that were going on externally. I didn't know that like I could change the way I feel inside, which would change the lens that I see outside. So anyway, I end up, reading a few of her books, getting a little bit more into Buddhism, and really finding more peace within myself, which allowed me to feel more peace at work. And so through that, I realized that I needed to get healthier. Like I couldn't be staying out late. I couldn't be, doing a lot of the drinking that I was doing. I couldn't be eating the things that I was eating. And so I really went on this journey, and I ended up overhauling my life. I changed the way I eat. I changed the way I looked at the world around me and the people around me. And then that led me to a place of really wanting to gather more information and to get more education. So anyway, I ended up starting a health and wellness company while I was still working in my finance career. And during that time, it just gave me a really nice creative outlet. So I just started helping family and friends that were around me to get, more grounded, healthier, looking at the foods that they were eating, but looking at all of the things that they were feeding themselves as far as the relationships they had, how they showed up at work. And it really was fun for me. It wasn't something that I initially got paid for. It was really just a creative outlet. But then I started getting paid. People felt like they wanted to compensate me. And I was like, well, okay. And then once that kept going, like a year into it, I was like, I think I can really make this into a career. So I went on and left my finance career, which was terrifying, but I had an inner trust and certainty within myself, knowing that like what I was leaving was not the path I was supposed to be on. I felt stifled by where I was. And so I started my own health and wellness company. And the primary focus actually turned into corporate wellness, which helped me kind of like heal leaving a corporate career and kind of staying in that corporate space and serving the type of person that I was before I made a lot of those changes. And it felt great because, I would go into these companies. I had really great contacts coming off of my career. I would go into companies and I would basically say like, okay, how can we make your employees more present at work harder, and also feel healthy in an environment that doesn't allow a lot of healthy habits. So I would go in and do meditations with them. I would do lunch and learns that were focused on nutrition. And it just really started to run the gamut. And it really grew into a bigger business than I thought. I started bringing in contractors to do the work for me, and I was the one that was just negotiating those contracts. So it really just grew into something that I didn't really see it getting to the extent that it did, but it was really exciting. And it also built a sense of another layer of trust within myself to say, if I follow what I feel in my heart and in my gut, I just have to put one step in front of the other, and the rest is being laid out in front of me. I'm being rewarded for taking these risks. So why not take more risks? And so that's kind of like the story and how I left my career, started a business. There's a lot of different like little stories within there. I mean, there's a lot of really awesome people that I came across that mentored me, fostered me, gave me big pushes. I mean, specifically, a good friend of mine is Jessica Ortner from the Tapping Solution. If you don't know who they are, if you haven't checked them out, you must. They do really amazing tapping meditations with EFT, but there's so much more than that. They have an app, they have a great website, but Jessica and I actually met about 14 years ago, I think. And we just met through friends, and she was just like, Sarah, I don't know why you are doing this work that you're doing. Like, I see it's robbing you of your happiness. And so for my birthday, she bought me a ticket to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And she's like, I don't care what you have to do. You're going, take off of work, figure it out. And I was resistant because I was like, well, I had just gotten married. I was going on a honeymoon to Thailand for 2 weeks. And then this would require me to add another 5 days onto that. And I was like, there's no way I can do it. I've never even taken off more than a week from work in my entire life. And here I am taking 2 weeks off for a honeymoon. And then now you want me to take off more. But again, I was just like, I got to just trust this. I got to do it. This is like a great opportunity for me. So I ended up going to Tony Robbins and really clearing out a lot of the mental clutter that I still had. And I came up with a plan in that 4-day seminar. And I had a really great exit strategy that I had a couple of scenarios to work out, you know, if they presented themselves. And then straight off of the Tony Robbins seminar, I went to Thailand, which was such a great experience because here I am, I go to the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within, and it removes all of the fears that I had in leaving my career. Then I go to Thailand where people are so happy with so little. It's such a simple way of living. And I got to really experience that. And so when I came back from that trip, I was ready to leave. I was ready to leave my finance career. And I felt like I had all of the tools and the trust within me to do it. So that's just like one of the stories within that transition in my life that really made a huge impact. And that's part of the reason why I'm here now.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is, you know, as we're filming this today, like I'm thinking about the time and space that you started that. Mm-hmm. People were not as open.
No, I was such a weirdo.
Yeah. You're like, what is this? We're making money. Who wants to meditate? Who wants to work? Now it's commonplace. Yeah. Obviously still gaining. And I just laughed, like it used to be, I mean, talk about an uphill battle at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the success that I had because I had lived it. And it was a theme that was happening within a lot of people's lives, especially in that industry, that they hadn't yet realized. But from the moment that I started talking about it, so many people were like, oh my God, yes, this is what I need. So it really was, it was a very early time. I mean, I'm talking, this was 2011. And it was really before, you know, a lot of this information was, you know, in front of us on a daily basis, and we didn't have the access that we normally had. And it was great because I was passionate about it. You know, I knew that what I was doing was healing myself, but I knew I had really great information to heal other people, or at least just to give them a little sense of control within their life if they're feeling unhappy.
Because I mean, I think ultimately, I mean, I see it on a day-to-day basis. We cast this big shadow of intrigue, and it's complex, like, to make money, right? Like, it's really not. When you learn enough and you're around it enough, like, here's the scenario, this is, margins, about like money, the money aspect. What I found to be exhausting, and what I've had the same conversation for 5 days with the health insurance guys, leaders of many companies, is we've made wellness and eating right and working out way too complicated. Like, and there's so much information out there. It's become information overload. And so what that means is you don't do anything.
Yep. And for me, like, what I say to people is, like, stop collecting information and check your bullshit and then take action. Like, that's really all you need to do, is do something. But recognize the bullshit you're feeding yourself on a daily basis. What stories are you telling yourself? Where's the truth? Because so many people go through their lives not recognizing that they're telling themselves stories, that they're telling themselves victim stories, or stories that have been ingrained within their mind since they were a child. And they don't stop and think, like, is this true? Is this voice that's telling me all of these stories actually true? And so one of the things I like to do is actually name that voice. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it, I love Phil Stutz. He wrote The Tools with Barry Michaels, and also Coming Alive. Great books. If you haven't checked them out, you must. He calls it Part X. And knowing that there is a part of you that tells stories, and there's a part of you that can rewrite the stories. And so it's all your choice. So whether you're willing to accept the bullshit that Part X is telling you is really up to you. And so I looked at myself, and I love checking my stories. It's a constant thing that you always have to do. It doesn't ever end. And so, yeah, I'll have stories that come up in my mind, like the story that you were telling yourself about the rain and not going to class, like, it's just so fun now to look back at that and be like, that was such bullshit. Why was I doing that? It's because I didn't want to be uncomfortable,
Oh, 100%.
And so,
yeah. I mean, you're just saying, because uncomfortable, like, that is the bigger issue, right? We're all too comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, like, my joke is, like, what a fever's job is? It's to regulate the body. But the moment that we have a fever, we reach for a pill.
Yeah.
Like, how about you just let it do what it's meant to do?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting to me too, because I've done it myself, but now seeing it with my clients, we want things to be comfortable. Overtly and out in the world, we can, pump our chests up and be like, I got this, I'm strong, I can figure out anything, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, behind closed doors, you just want to be comfortable. And so what is that comfort doing to you and your growth? And so, again, the thing that I like to look at least initially with people, is, what stories are you telling yourself? Where are these stories coming from? And, like, where are the victim stories? Because the victim stories are so big, especially being a business owner, like, you feel like sometimes, especially if you're so ingrained in the business and you built a big business, the victim story can be pretty compelling, especially if you keep playing the loop over and over and over again. So, kind of to fast forward, I don't want to skip over this, but I'm now, and have been for 6 years, a consultant to businesses on how to grow, because I took a formula that was based on my experience as a business owner and also working in finance, to then help business owners cultivate the strength within themselves to trust themselves, build the protocols to be a backbone to that, but also then to have a better lens to look at their businesses to scale them out to the next revenue goal. But anyway, again, going back, storytelling is huge.
And you're working with really large businesses, where, relates to all businesses in general. What are they not focusing on, or what are they continually doing that's not allowing them to grow the way they want?
So in a very general sense, it's a lack of curiosity. It's saying, well, this is how we've done it. And so that's it. That's kind of where it stops. And it's like, well, that's how you've done it. And I hear you want to grow. So what are we going to do about how you've done it? Like where are we willing to be uncomfortable, and to be curious? And so that's actually one of my vetting questions. Like, how curious of a person are you, or how curious do you think you can be? Because I'm going to present a lot of concepts that you probably were not expecting, but we need to work through them. And the concepts are, which they later find out about, is mindset, because the mental blocks are the things that are keeping you from growing your business, and the stories that you're telling yourself, whether it's like, oh, well, I have Joe over here in sales. He's just not selling, he can't do his job, but I can't fire him. And it's like, well, what? So I again, curiosity is huge. And I say, if you can be curious and you can follow my lead and you do the work, you have to take action, do all of the work that I ask. And if it still doesn't work for you, you can fire me. Go ahead, fire me. But if I present these concepts to you and you don't take the action, we're going to have a conversation. And so I take a little bit of a soft and sweet and hard approach, because I'm like, I'm here to help you. I have a lot of empathy for what you're going through because I've been there, but like, I'm not going to stand for you not working your business and also not taking action on the things that we need to take action on. I mean, I'm only as good as your success in the end. And that's the way that I've built my business. I've never had to market myself. And I've been doing this for a long time. And it's because of the success stories that I've created. And then they go and tell their friends and family.
One of the things that I noticed about you and other people that, you're kind of in a transition phase in your business onto your next thing, you have an innate ability, and not that, this might not be on the this might be on the outside, not the inside from time to time, but you have an innate ability to say, you know what, this is great. I've enjoyed it, but there has to be more great out there. And, reinvent yourself. Like I love people that and that's for other people to put labels on you, but for you to say, I'm in a different season of my life. And I know you're headed in that, or you're in the middle of it, or kind of on the other side of it. How do you, when you're ready to leave this thing that's been so successful for you for so long, and you could easily do it for 10, 20 more years, how do you make peace in your mind to say, I think there's something out there more for me? Like, how do you not hang on to that old you?
Yeah, well, a lot of courage is based on experience. So knowing that I left my finance career and I had those golden handcuffs and they were so strong and they were so great. Like I felt so accomplished, so good. And my family was so proud of me, and they're still proud of me, by the way. But having that experience, and it's happened over and over again, where I've had to confront myself and say, does this really make me happy? Because my success is a totally duplicatable process. I know that because I've done it over and over again. So now for me to kind of like make a little shift off to the side from what I've been doing, and it's not completely abandoning what I've been doing overall, it's just making a little shift because I want to continue to curate my life, and I want to continue to curate my business to support that life that I want. Because what is this all for that I've done? I could have just stayed in my finance career. I would have been fine. But I left, and I left because I knew that there was a pull in my heart and in my energy, in my spirit, that I had to go in a different direction. And so again, my point is courage is based on experience. It's also based on a belief that you choose to have. And so I choose to believe that, like, yeah, I can do this. I've done so many things. I have so many things that I didn't think that old Sarah would never have thought that she could do. But I know. So it's actually pretty easy to do right now. It's just the hard part sometimes is saying no, because the funny thing about the universe is, like, when you decide to make a change, it's going to throw you some, really 100%. Cool things at you. And you're like, well, should I do it? Should I stay where I am? And it's like, well, no, this is the test. And if I don't take this test and I don't push through, I'm going to have to keep taking this test over and over and over again, because that's karma.
Well, one of the things that I had to remind myself, especially when it's going bad, is like, hey, dude, like 5 years, you were a fucking alcoholic. Like, do you get that, like, where you want to be now is like where you wished you would be your entire life. And I have a lot of surreal moments. Like, you're just like, okay, like, this is like, I'm for lack of a better word, like, I'm a CEO of multiple companies. Like, this is fucking amazing. This is like what you wanted. Mm-hmm. And yet I still find myself sometimes not, I'm grateful, but not being as grateful as I should be, because there's a lot of, which I wear with pride, but there's a lot of burden. Like, here's where it's changed for me. This is not a joke anymore. We have people's feeding their families off of our careers and jobs and companies. And we have, other people that are feeding their families. I take this shit very seriously. So if I'm stressed out or I'm pissed off, it's not because of the money. It's because I'm letting people down from a family point of view. And I'm not saying that's the most easy way to deal with it, but it means something to me. And I think if a lot more people looked at their career or their job or their company more in that light, and that you owe these people a safe environment to work where they're growing, they're supported, and they're not treated negatively. Like, you owe that. And we're, in my personal opinion, we're having a changing of the guard in business, and the old guard is dying off, where you lead with force and negativity. And if you're bringing that to these new employees, you're not going to have a company for long.
Yeah. I oftentimes ask people, because again, I'm usually entering a business when they're at a low and they need some rehabilitation. And so this sounds so silly, but I swear by it. It's like, I come in and I'm like, where is your gratitude? What are you grateful for? Because it's so easy to lose that in the process of building, and also taking all of those punches to the chin. It's like, you can lose that very easily. But the more you get into a grateful space, the more clarity you can have in the controls that you have. And also the more clarity you have in the uncontrollables too. So it allows you to kind of like let a lot more go. And a lot of the work that I have to do is helping the business owner or business leader release that death grip that they have on the business, because oftentimes they're just too integrated in the business, and they're not allowing people within their business to operate from more of an entrepreneurial standpoint, like really taking ownership of the work that they do, because there's this constant micromanaging and oversight. But a total side note, I mean, I love that you just brought up, quitting drinking. I find too that identifying things within your life, whether it's alcohol, any other substance, whether it's coffee, or whether it's relationships that you have powerlessness over, those are things to really look at. Because how can you truly be a successful entrepreneur and have that resilience and have that trust within yourself when there's any kind of true dependence or powerlessness within your life? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're totally taking another direction right now, and I don't want to get you off track because we were talking about something great, but that's such a thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I, for myself, have, really like pulled back on how I treat my body and what I put into it.
That dependence could be money.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
what it says, what it makes
exactly.
like what it makes your identity look like. Right?
Oh, I was totally that way when I was working in my finance career. Like, my success and the money that I had and the clothes that I wore, the designer shoes, the designer handbags, like that was all me creating an identity for myself. That wasn't actually real. It was just an outside identity. And it's like, you can get so addicted to maintaining that status that you're robbing yourself, whether it's your bank account or your spirit.
Do you know what's funny? Everybody that I've interviewed almost 500 people, and people that have lost it all. Do you want to know what affected them the most? It wasn't the cars. It wasn't the house. It was the status in the community.
Yeah.
It was, does this mean I'm a nobody?
Yeah.
Did I lose my clout? Did I lose my friends? And my thing is, if you lost your friends, they weren't your friends in the first place.
Nope. And you're going to find new friends that are aligned with where you're going, what you're doing, and the person that you want to be. Like that I've seen that. I've seen that be a big fear, especially going back to the consulting side of things where, I mentioned that there's been a few instances where, a business owner is so focused on a couple of people within their business and this is why it's not working. But I can't fire them. I'm like, well, there's kind of an addiction there, whether it's an addiction to you being the good person or an addiction to keeping that person within the business. It can be a family member, whoever, not being the bad guy. So there's just so many different layers to it, but there's one of the exercises I do is identifying areas of your life where you feel powerless or where you could have some energy that's leaking. And to be honest, like drinking is a big one for people.
100%. I mean, I was talking about it all weekend. It's made seem normal. So then we don't see it as a problem. Yeah. Working hard and making a ton of money is normal. And so we justify it again. And so there's all these things that we justify that really, if you're in a silo, meaning by yourself, the act of helping for me is so ingrained in who I am that sometimes I don't realize how much I'm helping, because you're so stuck in your thing and you're like, hey, but what I've basically made peace with is like, I can't control this conversation and when you hear this message, and it might not be what you want to hear right now, but you might hear it in 3 years. And so there's an obligation for me to get the message out there. I don't control when you get the message. And I think if you take that tack, then it's impact at scale. And then you're really creating something that can live forever. And, it excites me when a young kid reads a book and it unlocks something and he's like, oh shit, that's amazing. And I didn't think about that way. And it happened 2 times yesterday with clients. They're like, oh, wow. Well, that's why, we're in your presence because of these things. And so, that's why you're so great at what you do, because you want to do those same things for you. If people want to find out more about you, they want to follow your journey, how would they do that?
Best place is LinkedIn. I mean, that's really where I do most of my connecting with people. But you can always email me, sarah@sarahdade.com. And yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to connect. I'm, kind of like we had mentioned earlier, I'm sort of changing the tide of the way that I do business, because I really have found, a great season of my life that personally I want to support. And so I'm now kind of curating the clientele that I acquire to fit in with that personal life that I have. So it's been fun and an exciting moment for me. I'm serving on a few boards for some startups that are really fun. And I think they're really going to make a huge impact, not only like within the sector that they're working in, but I think just in the world overall. And doing some coaching, some mindset coaching, and then being really selective with the businesses that I choose to work with to help them out and help them grow.
No, I love it. So important. Guys, if you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.